Well, it looks like the keys to the housing market might finally be turning in buyers' favor. A report from Realtor.com says the week of October 12th through the 18th is the best time all year to buy a home, with more listings and less competition on the block. For more, I'm going to bring in here Danielle Hale, chief economist at Realtor.com. Danielle, it is good to see you as always. So your research shows, Danielle, mid-October, the best week of the year to buy a home. Why is that, Danielle? Explain the trend, and do you think it'll be true this year?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Josh. So it's good to talk about the best week of the year to buy a home. That's October 12th through 18th this year. It's based on historical seasonal trends that we see in the housing market. People who are not actively involved in the housing market may not realize, but the housing market is a very seasonal industry. We know about Black Friday and Christmas and other holiday sales. The housing market actually follows similar patterns, not timed around Christmas, but timed around the spring and summer home buying season. As we move into the fall, we see buyer competition cool off, but this early fall week is advantageous for buyers because we've still got enough home sellers on the market to make their options available for buyers. And so we see less competition, better pricing power for buyers who can still find what they want before we move closer to the end of the year.
And Danielle, are there certain areas of the country, certain regions where this trend is more prevalent and pronounced than others, or no, this is a true national theme?
It's really nationwide because it's not driven just by temperatures and weather patterns, but by school patterns. So a lot of families who have young children who are often in the housing market want to move in the spring and summer so that their kids can be settled before they start school. So that's one of the big reasons why we see this pattern in the housing market. And then, of course, weather conditions can exacerbate that in some markets. When we look at the best week, that is the case nationwide mid-October. And in 21 of the 50 largest markets, it's the exact same week is the best time to buy. And many of the other 50 largest markets are very close, a week or two before or after this best time to buy.
If I did buy now, Danielle, how much would I typically save versus summer or spring?
So based on the nationwide average, relative to the peak price that we saw this summer or spring, which is about $440,000, you're looking at a savings of about $15,000. So that's based on lower pricing that we typically see at this time of year, and you'll have fewer buyers on the market to sort of elbow out as you're competing for homes. So that's another advantage for this best time to buy week.
And how, Danielle, should sellers be thinking about all this? I mean, how should they be responding and strategizing if they know buyers have this kind of seasonal leverage?
Yeah, so the best time to sell is typically in the spring. So this is not the most advantageous season for sellers, but that doesn't mean that they can't sell a home. There are still buyers in the market, but they do want to be mindful of the competition. One of the reasons that this week can be a good time for buyers is that there are still a good number of sellers on the market. So if you're going to sell your home now, you want to make sure that you price mindfully in line with the competition. Keep in mind that because there are fewer buyers in the market, you might have to be a little bit more flexible and react if your price doesn't land and you don't get offers quickly. So keep that pricing power in mind. And then if you are really anchored to a certain price and you want to make sure you hit that price, you can also consider waiting until the spring to list your home for sale. Though we're not seeing that many sellers do that so far. We have seen new listing growth, which is an indicator of seller activity, kind of keep on pace with what we saw last year. It was actually a little bit up this week in the latest data. So it does seem that sellers are still interested. And if you are interested in selling this year as opposed to waiting, the sooner you list in the season, the better your conditions.
Beyond just this best week, Danielle, how does the fall broadly look for the industry? How's it shaping up?
Yeah, so the housing market had a relatively slow spring and summer season. Home sales have been relatively low, but as we've seen mortgage rates come down, coinciding with the first Fed cut of what we hope will be many, we're seeing buyers get back into the market, and I expect that we'll see home sales pick up again as we move into the fall. So even though this is seasonally the best time to buy because we have slower buyer competition, we are likely to see a more active fall buying season because of those lower mortgage rates finally bringing some relief. Mortgage rates have been down below 6.5% for only the fifth week in a row in 2025. Which is a little bit longer than we saw them get down to this threshold last year. So those who've been waiting not only get the best time to buy, but also a little bit of mortgage rate relief right now.
Yeah, I'm just looking here, Danielle, 30-year fixed, 6.32 according to Mortgage News Daily. Where do you think we are, Danielle, 6 months from now, 12 months from now?
I think we're going to hold in this pattern, not very far off from the low 6% as we get towards the end of the year, and probably get a little bit closer to that 6% range as we move into next year. I don't see mortgage rates moving a whole lot lower below that because we've got the 10-year Treasury that seems to be stuck at 4%, which is about where I expect it to be in the long run. So even though we expect to see some Fed easing, I think a lot of that easing is already priced in and it will not necessarily translate into lower longer term rates because we've got considerations about trade policy and fiscal policy that I think will keep those longer term rates from moving too much lower.
Danielle, always good to see you. Always good to have you on the show. Enjoy the weekend.
Thanks, you too, Josh.